Okay, everyone, we will go ahead and get started. So, good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's community forum for Paradise Valley Community College's Vice President of Academic Affairs Search. We are excited to have you with us. My name is Dr. Versha Anderson, and I am Communication Faculty and the current Faculty Senate President at PVCC and a Tri-Chair for the search. My fellow Tri-Chairs are Dr. Stella Perez, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Rio Salado College, and Mr. Wilbert Nelson, Dean of Arts and Sciences at Phoenix College. As a reminder, each forum is being recorded and the recordings will be posted to the search site at the completion of today's forums. For those joining us virtually, we ask that all participants turn off their cameras or video. Before we begin, we want to inform you all that live captioning and American Sign Language interpretation are available via WebEx. Thank you to Esther Siebold and LaDonna Gabrielson for serving as our ASL interpreters. For those joining virtually, you can pin Esther Siebold or LaDonna Gabrielson to your personal screens as needed. Next, to provide an overview of today's forum, each finalist will have 15 minutes to explain how their background, expertise, and experiences have prepared them to be the Vice President of Academic Affairs at PVCC. Then we will open it up to questions from our in-person and virtual attendees for 15 minutes. Mr. Justin Johnston will moderate the virtual chat, and in-person attendees will be invited to come up to the microphone with their questions. After the Q&A period, finalists will be given 5 minutes to provide closing thoughts and remarks. At the conclusion of the forum, a feedback form will be made available. So thank you all again for joining us. Now I'd like to officially welcome Dr. Gregory Ferenchak. Dr. Ferenchak has more than 25 years of experience as faculty and as an administrator in multicultural and multi-campus community colleges, as well as small rural colleges in Florida, North Carolina, Texas, and Virginia. He has 15 years of successful classroom and online teaching of credit courses in radiography. Dr. Ferenchak was awarded a continuing contract and promoted in rank for his accomplishments as faculty. Dr. Ferenchak has experience with 10 different programmatic accrediting agencies and several state regulatory agencies for health science and nursing programs. He wrote and managed various grants to start up new health science programs or to provide training to meet the workforce needs. He has extensive leadership experience in elected positions on boards for local, state, and national professional organizations. He served as president of the Commission of Accreditation of Allied Health Education Programs, Board of Directors. He was a member of the Joint Review Committee on Education in Radiologic Technology, Board of Directors, and coordinated the revision of the national curriculum for 2-year radiography programs for the American Society of Radiologic Technologists, ASRT. He served on the Radiography Practice Analysis Advisory Committee for the American Registry of Radiologic Technologists, ARRT, to revise the Radiography Registry exam. Dr. Ferenchak served as President, Recording Secretary, and Member at Large of the National Network of Health Careers in 2-year colleges, NN2. Dr. Ferenchak earned a master's degree in adult education and a doctorate in higher education administration. He enjoys cycling, hiking, and traveling in his free time. So Dr. Ferenchak, welcome again. Again, you will have 15 minutes to explain how your background, expertise, and experiences have prepared you to be the Vice President of Academic Affairs. Ms. Ariana Escarzaga will serve as our timekeeper and will alert you when there are 5 minutes left, and then again when there is 1 minute left. With that, I will turn it over to you, Dr. Ferenchak.
Thank you. Once again, thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here so late. So let's just get to it because I've got a lot to say to you today. If you've been in any of these sessions, you probably hear a repeat of what we've kind of talked about earlier. So if you had any questions you didn't ask, you can ask them today. So just a little bit more of a background. I was born and raised in Ohio. My grandparents were immigrants here. They're from Czechoslovakia. They didn't speak English, so I understand when students have faculty or their parents in the meetings with them that they have to translate because my parents had to do the same thing. When we were growing up, Since my parents went to school, they did not speak English because they didn't speak English at home. They only spoke Slovak, so they had to learn English when they went to grade school. But luckily, the way it was up in Ohio, there was always church school, so the nuns in the school actually spoke Slovak, or they spoke Greek, or they spoke Lithuanian, so they were able to communicate with their students. So I'm basically second generation in the USA. So I'm kind of aware of the challenges that the students have when they come to us and they want to get an education. So like she said, I've been in North Carolina, Virginia, Florida, and Texas. And I learned a lot of different things as far as, what it was like to be from the North, the Midwest, and then what it was like to be in the South. To actually see tobacco fields and cotton fields was kind of a quite an experience as opposed to just hearing about them or reading about them or seeing them in movies. So like I said, my background originally was from Rad Tech. My education was in a hospital-based program. I had 7 brothers and sisters. There were 8 of us in the family. So going to college was going to be a challenge for my parents. Luckily, the program that I selected with the Rad Tech was a free program. It was basically an apprentice school. So I got to go to school free. Basically, I lived at home, so there was no books to pay for, no tuition. In fact, the second year of the program, we actually got paid for being kind of working as a staff member there. So it was kind of very easy for my parents to send me to school. When I finished school, the instructor for the program asked, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, my intention is to go back to college and get a degree because I want to be a high school teacher. And he said, well, if you're interested in teaching, why don't you just teach this? So in order to teach Rad Tech, I had to get a bachelor's degree, so that's how I ended up with a biology degree. And just like other faculty, when I got into teaching, it was like I wanted to get promoted, I wanted to learn more, so that's why I got the master's in adult education. And then when I became an educator, Dean actually wanted to be a better administrator, so I got the doctorate degree. So as far as like a lot of students, once again, I was first in the family to get a master's degree and the only one to get a doctorate degree. In addition to the formal education, I think I learned more about being a teacher and more about being an administrator through professional development. I had the opportunity to go through the Chair Academy where I learned a lot on leadership, problem solving, networking. That was the big key because actually networking and, you don't know all the answers and you want to learn from other people. So, that's kind of where I was kind of exposed to Maricopa, what was happening here. Because through the Chair Academy, they had people from different colleges there, and they always said, well, this is what Maricopa is doing, this is what they're doing, they're cutting edge. One of my first jobs was at Miami-Dade College, and once again, this is where I kind of learned about Maricopa. But another area where I learned as far as professional development was the Disney Institute. Being from South Florida, we did a lot of workshops on customer service through the Disney Institute, through Disney. And I learned there that you don't want to just meet their student expectations, you always want to exceed them. So that was something that I always worked on, is exceeding expectations, whether it was in the classroom, whether it was working with faculty, whether it was working with administration, give them more than what they expected. And that was the way that they can come back. The other professional development that I did was through the teacher improvement programs. Once again, in most community college instructors, they don't have the formal education training. So I did go through some teacher improvement programs. When other faculty were on spring break, the health science faculty worked with Windham City College, where they actually came in and taught us how to do a mission statement, how to do goals, how to do mapping of your objectives to a test, how do you make sure that you do a good presentation. So I learned a whole lot as a professional development. So as far as my background, she said, I worked at this community college faculty, and I love that, working with them, working as a program manager, being a department chair, being an entry-level administrator. It was a little bit taxing at times because a lot of times whenever there was something new, it was, well, the department chairs can do that, the department chairs can do that. So it was always put down on the department chairs. And then when it became a dean, it was the same thing. Well, the academic deans can do that. This is something the academic deans can do. So I kind of learned that, the more you got, the more experience you had. So once again, I'm a background that's very strong in faculty and entry-level administration. Employers, once again, Miami-Dade, Broward College, Paris Junior College, Vance Granville Community College, Tidewater. So I had everything from very rural community college colleges where you basically had to do a lot for yourself. We didn't have teaching, learning, or professional development department. You had to do that for your staff. You had to do that for your faculty. So I learned how to actually teach the teachers, how to coach staff members, how to work with faculty on curriculum development. The bigger schools, we had those luxuries, so there was a lot of training that was actually available for everyone there. So whenever I looked at my priorities as an administrator, there are basically three things, and I've talked about this today. It was basically recruitment, retention, and achievement, program completion. Especially in the health sciences and any of the workforce programs, you want to get students in, you want to keep them in the program, persist, and then get them to completion. So it was always a teamwork event. I had to coordinate a lot of the stuff as far as the recruitment, retention, working with the faculty, working with student affairs to make sure that we had everything we needed for the students to be successful when they ran into trouble, and then getting them to complete the program. So my expertise, once again, as far as improving recruitment is, one of the first things I always ask students is, why are you here? Why are you coming to college? What program do you want to do? So we always looked at it, or I looked at it as putting the right student on the right bus and in the right seat. You know, you may want to do health sciences. You may think there's only nursing, but then are you aware of these other programs? So making sure that they know that the program they're going to is the one that they really want to be in. It was kind of frustrating when you're working as a recruiter in the health sciences to get a student into a program, and then they say, oh, I didn't know you had respiratory. I'm going to drop this program and go into the other program. That's something you can't just do. You know, these are closed enrollment programs, so you have to basically apply for it, get accepted into the programs. So what I did a lot with improving recruitment is working with, once again, student affairs, doing open houses, high school guest speakers. When we would send faculty to geometry classes in high school or physics high schools to say, this is how you would use geometry in radiography. This is how you would use ultrasound in sonography. This is what you would do as far as your math skills in nursing. How do you convert ratios, and how you can come up with a dose calculation for a medicine. So actually applying what they were going to do, and then actually give them live examples of how they would actually do that. So, you know, working with recruitment is extremely important. One of the things I like to do, and I kind of felt real comfortable with, is in order to improve recruitment, to increase equity, diversity, inclusion, especially in health sciences, is really to lower the cost to the students. Now, I work very closely with faculty to look at what's the cheapest textbooks we can use. How can we limit these course user fees to make it more palatable for the students to be able to afford to come into these programs? Securing scholarships for the students. I talked about the Scaling Foundation from West Palm, that foundation giving emergency funds to students in health sciences. So, you know, there's always money emergencies that can come up for students. So getting scholarships available for the students was extremely important. One of the other things that I do very well is as far as engaging with the service areas. Once again, working with those high schools, working with the counselors, inviting them to campus, doing tours for them, making sure that they know these are programs that we have. So when students come to them and say they want to be a nurse, well, you got to go to this university or you have to go here. You know, there's a program at PJC, there's one at Broward College, there's one at Miami-Dade, there's one in Paradise Valley. So making sure that they're aware of what we have here. Increase enrollment, bring in more clinical affiliates. You know, most of the health science programs, once again, there's limited capacity, and it's always with how many students can the hospital accommodate. So once again, the more affiliations we have, the more students we can bring in, so it actually increases revenue. So, you know, I did a lot of work with dental offices so we can increase dental hygiene. Same thing with PTA, physical therapist assistant, bringing in more outpatient centers so we can bring in more students. Meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, meeting with Rotary clubs, Masonic lodges. You'd be surprised that Masonic lodges have scholarships that they can give you for the students to go through the programs. Working with academic affairs and student affairs, once again, working with them to make sure that our students are persisting through the programs is another thing that I do well. So retention, once again, is actually doing what I consider is improving the teaching and learning, working with the faculty, coaching the faculty. One thing I'd like to do is, if everyone during questions, if you're doing QM and if you're doing ACU, I'd like to get your input on that. So working with the faculty, making sure that they know what they're doing as far as giving the best presentations possible. I talked with the president about looking at expanding courses and program offerings using technology and innovative approaches to meet student learning needs. If you looked at Odessa College, they did 16-week courses. What they found is that they did 2 8-week sessions, taking 4 classes, 2 8 weeks, and then 2 the second weeks, they can increase persistence. So we implemented that in the health sciences, and taking 2 classes at a time, it accelerated. So that is kind of helpful for the students. Implementing CATs, classroom assessment techniques. Once again, making sure that you're assessing the student knowledge in the classroom. Curriculum development. I developed the first DMS program years ago in Virginia. That was an adventure because I'm not a sonographer, so I had to work with sonographers to say, what do we need to do to make the students workforce eligible? What do we need to do to make sure that they know how to scan all the abdominal organs? I worked on BS programs, supervision and management. I did an RN to BSN program. I did a health information program. Like she said, I'd worked on the 2-year curriculum for radiography. So, that was working on some curriculum development. Obviously, working in the healthcare fields, working with the service area, once again, making sure that we were providing the programs that they needed to meet their workforce needs in the hospital. If they needed a new respiratory program or radiation therapy program, secured scholarships for the students, worked with the foundation to provide scholarships for the nursing students so they didn't have to work part-time and go to the program. Worked on grants, found different grants that they can do as far as additional funding for the students. So once we got the students into the programs, once we got them through, is once again the achievement, getting them to the final thing as far as their licensing exam. So that was extremely important, making sure that they had the funding. I would get Carl Perkins grant money and pay for their certification exam. Most of the testing in health sciences is $300, $400, $500 to take that exam. Most of these students don't have these funds. Research shows that the longer they take from graduation to they take the certification exam, they decrease their probability of passing the exam. So that's extremely important. So we want those students to take that test as soon as they graduated, as soon as they were eligible. So we would advocate funds for them so they can actually get the test paid for, but they didn't have to take it out of pocket. Student evaluation is extremely important. Assessing, teaching, learning is looking at those. I looked at every one of those student evaluations after the faculty would get them and go over them with the faculty to say, this is what the good things the students are saying, this is what they'd like you to continue doing, this is what they weren't happy in class with, let's see what we can do to make this a little bit more positive. So working with faculty, working with assessment, I'm very comfortable with. If I had to kind of summarize my outcomes in 2-year colleges, I would say it's strictly the recruitment, retention, completion agenda, improving the standards for accountability, making sure that we are getting documentation to say that yes, our students are progressing, yes, they are achieving, yes, they are completing the programs. I think that's it as far as what I can share with you. So I'm open to any type of questions that you may have.
So thank you, Dr. Ferenchak. We will now open it up to questions for 15 minutes. Again, in-person attendees are invited to come up to the microphone, and virtual attendees may submit questions via the WebEx chat. Mr. Justin Johnston will moderate the virtual chat. With that, I invite you all for questions.
Greetings. I've asked the same question of everyone, so that's why there's a little bit of laughter going on here. You cited a lot of experience, a lot of different institutions. I don't know how many of them had a centralized district office around them. If so, as the VPAA, they will likely get directives from the district office. And sometimes those directives are not popular with the college, the constituents, meaning faculty, staff, students. How would you maintain and continue to be a leader in that instance? How would you continue to promote goodwill with your faculty, given that this directive is unpopular with the local level?
Well, first of all, I would hope that before, decisions are made at the top, that they get feedback from the grassroots to see how this is going to affect them, positive and negative, because it just really kind of set things up for failure, to be honest with you. So it does kind of, doesn't sit well with a lot of people, including me, that this is something I've got to support. This is something I've got to enforce when I'm not really comfortable with it, that I didn't have some input into it. So, it is working with the faculty, it is working with the staff, it is working with the college president, the campus president, or college president to say, this is what we've got to do. It's that same old phrase, it is what it is. Now let's go ahead and start doing this, but then let's get a chance to see how it works. If it's not working, let's start collecting some data to say, we've implemented this. These are the problems that we're seeing. These are the challenges that we're seeing. These are things that we can't really get over as far as the barrier. So, let's revisit this. Let's look at it from the perspective of the staff. Let's look at it from the perspective of the student. Let's look at it from the perspective of, how is this affecting these students and how is it affecting the campus overall and really the college. So supporting it, but then give it a kind of a trial period, a honeymoon period, and see if it's working. If it's not, we need to let the president know. I don't know how the structure works. Is if the president goes and says, listen, this is what you wanted us to do. We tried this. It's not working. Maybe we're doing something wrong. Maybe we need a little bit more direction.
Hello, we have a question from the chat. Have you had the opportunity to work with college athletics departments and its student athletes in the academic arena?
Not directly. Paris Junior College, we had programs because it was a small school. We didn't have any students in any of the health science programs. So Miami College had programs, health athletic programs, but I was on the medical center campus and we didn't have any involvement with them. So no.
Good afternoon, Shannon Monty, Administrative Assistant for Academic Affairs. Should you be chosen for this role, what would your strategy be to not only build the campus culture and community here at our main site, but at our satellite campus, Black Mountain as well, and establishing their identity, but part of our campus as a whole?
Make sure that there is communication with them, make sure that I'm visiting them on a regular basis because they are part of us here, and it is extremely important that they feel that they are part of us and not out there by themselves, basically floundering. So, seeing what their needs are and making sure that I bring to the president to say, this is what they're needing, this is what we need to do with them. So really a lot of communication, a lot of visiting with them one-on-one, giving them the opportunity to voice their opinion on how things are working over there and what improvements that they see are needed over there.
Another question from the chat. What strategies would you use to encourage faculty to use to improve success and completion in general education courses?
Can you repeat it again?
What strategies would you encourage faculty to use to improve success and completion in general education courses?
Making sure that the students know the value of those courses, how they are going to use them. Just like adult ed theory is, they need to know how this is going to be used in the future. It's just not, I'm going to learn this for this course and not use it again. Like I said, I go back to health sciences. Most of the health science programs have the gen ed courses, the A&P, the English, the math, the psych course, before they actually get into the program. We use those as gatekeeper courses, so to speak. So it's helpful if the faculty know that the students are going into nursing or they're going to this, that you're going to use this again. It's just not, you're going to learn it for this test and forget about it. You're going to apply this in the nursing program or in the EMT program. So it's important that you understand this anatomy and physiology. It's important that you know how to do these math conversions, solving for X and the basic algebra. So applying it to the actual professions that they're going to get into. It's always helpful if there's communication between the two groups. We always did a lot of one-on-one with the faculty from Gen Ed each year. We would give them samples of, this is a math program course, a math problem that you would do in nursing. Here's one that you do in rad tech. So, when they're doing ratios, that they could actually give them math applications from nursing or EMT or rad tech. So same thing in the psychology courses. So give them examples of how is this applicable to their future. So that's extremely important as far as the communication between the two groups. But once again, as far as making sure that they understand that this isn't something you just take and just to check off a box. You're going to apply this, and this is how you're going to use this, whether you go into business management or you go into communications or you become an English teacher.
Thank you, Dr. Ferenchak.
Coming. Good afternoon. I should say good evening now, right? Hi, my name is Felicia Ramirez. I'm communication faculty and co-chair of our assessment for learning team. So I work a lot with our accreditation team here at the college. So I'm wondering, can you tell us, have you had experience as an accreditation liaison or working on accreditation at the institutional level?
At Miami-Dade and at Broward and at PJC Paris, we had SACS visits there, so I had to do a lot of the legwork up front as far as making sure that our assessment plans were completed and we submitted it to IR so they can have them as examples of what we were doing artifacts. So, working with them, our PLOs, we had to do a lot of outcomes assessment as far as annual program, we call it program viability reports, and that included a lot of assessment techniques. So we had to do a lot of that, and once again submitted for artifacts. So I did a lot of that stuff with the faculty and with the IR department. So all of that was used for SACS accreditation.
Thank you, Dr. Ferenchak. We have about 7 more minutes for the Q&A if there are any more questions from folks.
I can go.
Sure.
Still have energy this late in the evening. Coming into this role, what strategies could you bring from your past experiences to be strategic and building a class schedule that is for the students, but in collaboration with student affairs and faculty and taking in what we learned during the pandemic?
Getting feedback from the students as far as the scheduling is extremely important. Do they like these classes in the morning? Do they like them in the evening? So getting feedback, and that's part of what I would like to see as far as on the course evaluation that they do is, was this at a convenient time for you? If not, when would you like to have this course offered? Are there alternative things? So, working with them and getting data, it's always best to go and meet with the group and say, well, here's what the data is showing. This is what, this is an area we're improving on. If we need some more face-to-face courses, we need to look at the schedule as how many are we actually doing. We used to teach a midterm course all online. It was just all online. So, students would complain that there's no face-to-face, So the alternative was, well, they went to another community college. When the academic dean found out about that, they asked why there's nothing online. It says, well, because the faculty don't want to teach online. It was told that was unacceptable. We're losing students. When you're losing students, when it's hitting your pocketbook, then things are going to change. So, we had to at least do an evening and a day face-to-face midterm course each semester so students can take them. So, getting the data from the students is extremely important and making sure that you understand this is not to punish you. This is more to increase enrollment. Our enrollment's down. This is the way we can get the enrollment. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, we'll try it a different day. But get their feedback. Well, when would be a good time to teach this course? How can we do this different? So getting feedback from faculty, student affairs, once again, student affairs, the advisors, they know really when the students are asking for courses. So it's up to them to go to the department. English said, we're running short sections. We need to add more sections in this, or we need another math algebra course. All of the courses are being filled up. Because the worst thing you want to do is bring a student in to get them registered. All the courses are closed, all the sections. So, you want to have those courses ready to just open up for availability for students.
We have one final question from the chat. What experience do you bring to PVCC regarding pathways and FOIs? That's fields of interest.
At Broward College, we were one of the first programs with AACC to do the pathways. So I was there in the beginning where we actually created the different pathways. Since I was the Dean for Health Sciences, I kind of created that one, put them all together and kind of got everything in order. At PJC, they were already a pathway school when I got there, so we had to formalize that and kind of streamline it to make it as far as getting the updated the program learning outcomes on the sheets and looking at workforce areas that they can go into, job market availability, the goals and things like that. So I'm very comfortable with the pathways. I'm very comfortable with the maps that we used in them.
Thank you.
So thank you all for your questions. We'd now like to give Dr. Ferenchak 5 minutes to provide closing thoughts and remarks. Again, Ms. Ariana Escarzaga will serve as the timekeeper and will let you know when you have 1 minute left. Dr. Ferenchak, please proceed with your closing thoughts and remarks.
I'm not going to take all that time. There's nothing different I can tell you to convince you to consider me for this position. I'm just very proud to be actually a finalist for this position. I never really thought in my wildest dreams that I would be this far in there because this is so far out of my league as far as being in health sciences, so this is kind of thing, something that, well, if you're not going to get the opportunity if you don't try it. So I was very pleased to be considered as far as a finalist. So I do appreciate all your engagement today. It was very friendly. I felt very comfortable here with all of you. I hope that you kind of learned a little bit about me as far as what I am. As far as a person, I'm very direct. I'm very transparent. If I don't agree with you, I'm going to tell you why. If you can convince me otherwise, I'm willing to change my mind. So, I'm very open to, your input. I don't like to make decisions on my own. It's always going to be a team event. But, once I make that decision, I'm going to own it. And if I made a mistake, I'll be the first to apologize and say, I made a mistake. I should have listened to you. So, I'm very transparent. I'm very comfortable hearing your side of the story or the argument. I don't take student complaints lightly. If a student complains, I'll listen to them and I say, I'm going to have to do some research on this to see, well, how did this miscommunication happen? How did things get this far? So, I like to resolve problems very quickly and include whoever's involved in that decision making so that everyone feels comfortable as far as moving forward. So, I really thank you once again for your hospitality and everything you've done. I felt very comfortable here, and you guys are a great team, and I know you're going to continue doing great work here. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. So again, thank all of you for joining today and for your engagement. On the screen, you will find a QR code to access the forum feedback form. This form is also available via the search site. Please complete your feedback by Tuesday, December 6th at noon. As a reminder, all feedback is to be based solely on today's forum, and all comments are subject to public disclosure under the Arizona Freedom of Information Act. This concludes the community forums for Paradise Valley Community College's Vice President of Academic Affairs Search. Thank you again for joining us.